Good morning. Morning. I think Trish has some announcements.
For lunch today, we're going to be serving it in Cove. And the reason for that is it's Senior Citizen Day and there's a barbecue going to be taking place. And I thought it was really beautiful. Jen just wanted me to remind you that this amazing space is for community.
It is a community center, it's the senior center, it's the preschool, it's the,
Every generation.
yeah, it's the kid camps. It's where the high school seniors do their graduation and their plays. And, that's what Ascension Camp is all about, is community. So this is the last um, day of the senior meals, and they're having a party. So that's what we're going to be. A barbecue. We're going to be having sandwiches. So the smell of ribs is going to be infiltrating. So just hold it down.
This gray hair comes in.
You could probably get in there. Cove senior citizen. You lived in Cove for years. It's Eastern Oregon. I'm sure you'd be welcome.
So the other piece on that, there'll be tables in the downstairs. I know we always kind of sit at our own table. I'm not sure how that's going to look today when we go in. So
we're like the only retreat that gets our own table.
I know.
At every other retreat, you just eat next to other silent people.
Yeah. We are spoiled in a lot of ways.
Yeah.
Yeah, I do realize that. Anyway, so it's gonna look different in there, and also too, though, there are chairs outside, so you guys know how to take care of yourself. Also, I wanted to acknowledge Tim O because he's making a soup for us today, which we're so appreciative. Something else, the elk meat that we've been eating too is a gift. Yeah.
Yeah, our son-in-law, he's a sweetheart.
Yeah. So there's so many layers to the family coming in and making its way into the retreat. That being said, also that this is our last sunrise to sunset. And so with that, the mind, it's really easy to start already jumping out, which I know what I'm doing in September. That blows me away, so it's that mind going forward. And I just want to remind you that this container, which is so sacred, and if you just keep falling into it a little more to be seen, realize, held here. So just keep dropping back in today. This silence that we created just has more. There's always more. So just keep dropping back. Softly.
Beautiful. Good reminder.
Enjoy your day. And I'll also talk a little bit tonight also, but just this reminder of the day ahead, I guess, is what I wanted to.
And small groups, we won't be able to have them at Founders because that's in the middle of the senior party. So in the fireplace room in Kimsey. Fireplace room in Kimsey, it's right past the coffee station.
It's carpeted, it's that carpeted room behind glass.
Yeah, it's like a library.
Yes.
Yeah, there's a few books.
There's a few books.
Yeah, 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 yeah. There's a piano.
Fireplace.
Yeah,
And so that is small group today.
yeah.
And I just want to check in. Can everyone hear Jen?
Can everyone hear me? Okay. I guess I need to start using one of those. When I used one of these mics before, I kept hitting it with my hands because I'm such a gesticulator. But this one doesn't pick it up quite as much. Is that any better? Is that a little bit more amplified? Okay.
Sorry, still looking this out of the last day.
No, that's fine. Hmm. Guess what was coming forward here as an offering. I'll see where it goes, and we can talk more tonight in satsang. But I think where the mind tends to go at the end of retreat is if I've realized something, recognized something, changed in some way, then how does that look when I get home? How does that look in my relationships? How does that look in my everyday stuff that I got to do and all of that? And of course, here, when I contemplate that, the first thing that comes to mind is gentleness, gentleness, gentleness. Be gentle, but probably get tired of hearing that from me. Although I do think that that's a approach that, even if we ask the question, is this kind? Meaning, is my response to what's happening and to myself and the situation as it's arising, is there kindness? Is it kind? My thoughts around it, the response can open up new and fresh orientations towards the moment. But I thought where I would start, and most of you have heard this story, but it's one of those stories that is so ripe and potent and everlasting. Um, and it was coming forward as we contemplate, how do I go home? How do I, navigate the waters of like everyday life, which is in no way separate from spiritual life. It's not my life and my spiritual life. We all know that, right? It's like we are a spirit having a human experience, and we are the spirit of God experiencing itself as human beingness in regardless of how we're categorizing the events. It's a story about Tim's mom. Her name was Polly. I'll probably cry a little bit. She was a remarkable, extraordinary human being. Um, it was a privilege to know her. She had 7 kids in 10 years. And then when Tim was 7 years old and his oldest sister was 17, their father died suddenly of a heart attack. And Polly was, unemployed. It was that time in our society where women stayed home and had babies in the Midwest. And uh, there she was, all these kids, really kind of no money. She went back to school. She became a librarian. She had an intellect that was superior. It was a superior kind of intellect, one of those just sharp as a tack all the way up until when she passed at 97. And she was just a remarkable person. Read the New York Times every day. One weekend, Tim and I used to call her every weekend and, what are you doing? What's happening? And she's like, well, I just got the notion that it's been quite a few decades since I read Plato, so I'm just rereading Plato. It was like one of those people, you're going, okay, that's interesting for a, 92-year-old woman. Um, Amazing. And so generous and kind and the most curious person I have ever been around. Curious up until literally the last breath. She was wondering what's next. I mean, it was amazing, her curiosity. She was born at the, like 19, I don't know, 10 or something, but she got right on email when it came and, all that. I mean, just curious, vital, um, in a very broken down body. She had arthritis in her spine and throughout her body, many, 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 many health problems. Um, these piercing blue eyes, and you'd ask her a question and she would say, oh, I have to live with myself every day. What's going on with you? Tell me, what's going on in the world? I can't get out of the house. She was just remarkable. So she had moved into assisted living towards the last few months of this part of her life as Polly. And we were all gathered because it was like she had had a mild heart attack and she wasn't going to do anything about it. And we were all assuming it was getting close to her transition time. And it's a big family, right? Because she had 7 kids and they all had lots of kids. And there's a bunch of us in the room. And she's literally glowing. I mean, it's visible to everybody, not just people who are kind of clairvoyant and stuff. It's a glowing, and she's teeny tiny at this point, and her eyes are on fire, and she's going from every one of us, making eye contact and telling us that she loves us. And you're a treasure to me. You're precious. I love you. And it would be like, oh, my Tim, and I mean, it the room was so heightened and so amazing in the energy. And she feels like she's getting close to passing. She's kind of having a lot of kriyas and stuff, which she wouldn't have called them that, I mean, that was not in her, but she was definitely experiencing like some kundalini and a bunch of the kriyas, and her eyes were closed, and all of a sudden she came up out of it, and she said, love, kindness, compassion, forgiveness. It's that simple. And it is really. It really, really is. It's the answer to all of the questions. And at that moment of transition, that dawned in her in a way that was so through and through and through and through. And she went home truly. And in contemplating today, like, okay, how do we leave retreat? and this safety and this feeling of silent togetherness and supportive spiritual companionship, communion. It's that simple. It's that simple. Love, kindness, compassion, forgiveness. And that's also towards our process. Because, see, what can happen is if that isn't our first response or our first reaction, we judge. But in that moment, it's the answer as well, see? It turns love, kindness, compassion, forgiveness. And then in that extension of it, that giving of it towards our own self, our own process, our own thought stream, our own reactions, our own responsiveness, it radiates outward. That's how it works. That's how it works. We have a little altar at the table where we eat with the Divine Mother, and of course lots of roses, and people, lots of people give me hearts that are made out of different kinds of stone. It's just beautiful, and we put all of them there. And my sister-in-law, after Polly's passing, gave us each just like little recipe cards, very Midwestern. I loved it. It was just like, yeah, love, kindness, compassion, forgiveness. It's that simple, and we have it on the altar where we eat. And I know we all know this, but it really is the practice. It's the art of enlightenment. It's the art of living. So no matter what we've realized, no matter what level of consciousness we're currently exploring and discovering and transcending, it's the compass. It's the compass for the life. And we don't know exactly what it will mean in that moment. We can't come up with that structure, that recipe, because the moment itself is the precise and perfect moment to elicit the next level of that understanding, of that knowingness. So it is like a trust, a faith, and a surrender and a devotion, all those words that have been coming forward. To the heart's way, to unconditioned, uncaused love's way, which is the nature of the fabric of reality, the universe, us. That is our nature. It's veiled because the mind creates, but what the mind creates when it is not in service, or not, let's put it this way, that's a little too judgy, when it's innocently unaware of its nature, it creates the world of good and bad. That's what it does. And then that's what we see and live. Good and evil. I mean, the story in Genesis is, that's it. When the mind is an avenue for awareness, itself, loving awareness itself, the ground of our being, then the love, kindness, compassion, forgiveness are inherent like wetness to water. The mind has this picture of a kind of stingy, almost miserly, punishing or rewarding parent of the, that's the universe. That's God. I mean, we're conditioned that way. We're conditioned that way. But that's not the truth. The truth is a benevolent, ever giving lovingness that is literally, it's undeniable, literally serving up this moment every, here you go, fulfillment, 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 fulfillment. So if we are in the world of innocently desiring, craving, wanting, separating, dividing, then what we are saying to this ever givingness, this ever lovingness is, I don't have that. And so, no, it's impersonal, it's not a punishment. We are the dreamers of the new earth. Dream it beautiful. Dream it beautiful. This apocalyptic, play your aces carefully. You hear what I'm saying? It's fulfillment. Discover, inquire into, and contemplate. And I loved Stephen's words at the Colorado retreat. Keep your eye on God. Contemplate the source of reality. And then sense that in the body, like so many of us were yesterday. Maybe all of us were sensing that basic, radiant goodness, love, kindness, compassion, forgiveness, the nature, the face of God, the nature of God, our true nature, our home. It's home. It doesn't feel like home to the judging mind. It feels like annihilation, death to the world of good, bad, division, separation, me, that, us, them. But here, no problem, right? The heart's totally cool with paradox, wholeness. It's like when we're kids and, something happens on the playground and, oh, Johnny did such and such. And Johnny's like, oh, I'm sorry. It's okay. Bada bing, bada boom. Let's go. Back to the play, back to the dance. That's, somebody in small group was talking about how they had come upon the realization that everything in its nature is meant to come and go, all in the world of phenomena, not our abiding home, true nature. But the world of phenomena, it comes and goes, and that's the nature of it. And it really reminded me, I think this came out of a discovery session that Jan and I had or something. We were both kind of laughing about it. I can't remember exactly, but there was this picture of the ego process sitting at the clerk's desk, right? With the stamp of like, you get to go or you got to stay. And the long line of karmic history just waiting to go. Yes, it came, but can it please go now? And it's stepping up to the desk, and the ego's going, nope, I still need you around. I'll keep you because you help out with my defenses and everything else. Okay, this one comes in. Okay, stamp, you can go. And then that just begins to thin out, and then thin out some more. And then pretty soon, it's not sitting at the desk anymore. And it's immediacy, liberation, liberating immediacy. Because that story of us, them, me, that is no longer perceived as we felt yesterday in our meditation. That I love the words Jack Kerouac, the golden eternity. I love that. The golden eternity of which we can sink right into, right? And like feel it. Timelessness moving through, as, amidst, and amongst time. So the compass is kindness, gentleness for oneself and others, apparent otherness. But also, we talked about it last night, trying to find a time to sit for some period of the day, a practice that you show up for. It may, I had somebody tell me in a Dokusan last week, well, I was there, I was listening to the mind the whole time, pretty sure it didn't do any good whatsoever, but I was there, just like you told me. Hey, some days it will be like that. But God works in mysterious ways, not necessarily overt, fascinating states ways. It's like the river in the canyon eroding. You know what I'm saying? Practice. Listen. I feel like agendaless, expectationless listening is synonymous with compassion. A deep presence. I'm here. Here I am. Even in the midst of a awkwardness or confusion in relationship, I've found that whoever I'm with has more patience with me than I have with myself. And if I just say, I got to take a minute, just give me a minute. I'm just going to go walk around for like 5 minutes. People are mostly okay with it. Just give me a sec. You find yourself maybe in a expression and a display that isn't a mirror of your deepest knowing, which happens. But you see it. Take a moment. Take a moment. Now, as all of these habituations and fixations and conditions, get their at ease soldier papers, you know, honor, leave with honors or whatever. They get to go. Things start getting very spacious. And there's a real freshness to the responsiveness that you can sense and feel is not coming from the conditioning or the habituation. I think Sharon Null was talking about that last night. You kind of see that, oh, that's the way I would have reacted, and mostly I've reacted, but it's just not that interesting or relevant anymore. Kind of like, I don't think so. More trouble for me. These two beautiful Sharons on both sides. Don't stop, and it's worth every minute. I thought that was pretty good to take with us. Because, hey, there is the time of fire and tumultuousness and a lot of conditioning coming in at once. And that can also feel very unmoored, untethered. Somebody used the word about where's the, during that time I used to envision Timo holding down the balloon string, the like, and whoa, the fire of, what are they, of liberation. Any kind of practice that really brings you very precisely into your physicality on the earth. Into your physicality on the earth. It can get very so even if we're like evoking beings of higher consciousness or divine help in whatever way we perceive that, bring it into the physicality, sense it in the physicality, in the body, soles of the feet, center of the chest, tailbone. Bring it in to, and as Sharon was talking about last night, find a Sangha brother or sister, a spiritual companion that can bear witness so that it really becomes quite tangible, and witness for others as well. It's that rises together. Giving and receiving is the same thing. There's availability. The 3 jewels of Buddhism make a lot of sense to me. The Buddha, which could just be the word of God, and the nature of reality, our true nature. The Dharma, the speaking of it, and the Sangha. So, put yourself in. Do you remember the old song from the 70s about give yourself to love if love is what you're after? Put yourself in the stream that if you want to kayak that particular river, then put your boat in that river. There are teachers that are available and resourceful and accessible in this lineage. The teaching is accessible and the sangha is accessible and intimate. I keep going like this to look at you, Diana. You're way over here, my. And we can, to the best of our ability, in any given moment, do our best. That's it. That's all we can do. I had a dokusan with somebody, I don't know, I can't remember, quite a few months ago, who the next day, what she had to go do was fire 35 people from her company. And it's like, sweetheart, do your best with the love in your heart and the understanding, and that is what you're doing tomorrow. Just do our best with the love, kindness, compassion, forgiveness. It truly brings forward the true nature of reality so that we can see it and live it and be it. It brings it into view. It's not that it isn't there, it is, but it's veiled with what we've been talking about, that dream state of the mind in its division function. And on that first day, I remember we read the story of Taijitsu and her just riding her raft through the ups and downs of the nunnery and of, the mind world. As Sharon says, the wavelets on the surface of the deep reality. And spread joy, spread kindness, spread love to here. And then, and we have to be able to let go of the situations and events where we are perfectly imperfect, fallible humans. Like, I think the spiritual ego, has some sort of idea there about perfection and, bliss and all of that. And it's true that the experience of it for sure becomes more and more and more and more and more of a well-beingness, even in the midst of, well, here for the last 3 years, it was deep grief around a familial thing. But never the well-beingness, that loving ground of awake stillness is ever present and within the life events. So the sense of it is quite different than where we start. And I don't think anybody here in this room is still spending a lot of time in victim consciousness, but that's kind of where it starts, right? Like the world is happening to me for some reason. And it's terrible. And I have no control. And there's the innocent ego process. Just let me make you safe. Let's try and make a defensible territory. Keep out the bad guys. Isn't it innocent? Don't we have so much compassion for that? Of course. If that level of consciousness is present in the perception, that's the obvious response. So, regardless of perception in a given moment, we are always and already home. It may not feel like it. It may feel very uncomfortable in a certain situation and separate and divided. But the ground of our being, our true nature, the lovingness that's beyond all notions and attributes and all of that is our very nature, ever, 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 eternally, infinitely, right here, right now. And we contemplate that, we sit down in that. And it begins to permeate the senses, the perceptions, the life consciously. It's like blooming. It's a blooming. I'm going to read this to wrap this up. I love this so much. I used to have somewhere in my intellect an understanding of who Rabindranath Tagore is, but I think he's an Indian. That's kind of left. Am I right, Michael? He's an Indian poet? Okay. I'm not sure. In Costa Rica, I read this, and a Devi, who is part of the Sangha, she's a Sangha sister who comes to Sharon and I's Costa Rican retreats. She's a neighbor of mine down there. She said it's Tagore, because she's Italian. Rabindranath Tagore. So I like that. And it's a tradition where it's like a song of enlightenment, like the great ragas and songs of enlightenment. I don't know what they call that in Tibetan, but this is a piece of one of them that hits so deeply here. It's just it. When you find a piece of writing where you go, oh, that's it. Perfect description. Love is the only reality, and this is not a mere sentiment. It is the ultimate truth that lies at the heart of creation. There is such a thing as coming to the nearer presence of the world through this understanding. It is like a real homecoming into this world. It is gaining the world more than can ever be measured, like gaining an instrument, not merely by having it, but by producing music upon it. Spiritual life is the emancipation of consciousness. Through it, we find immediate response of soul and heart everywhere. Before we attain this life, we see men and women through the medium of self-interest, prejudice, or classification. And because of the perpetual remoteness around us, we cannot cross over. When the veil is removed, we can only see the fleeting forms of the world that come close to its eternal being, which is ineffable beauty. Yes. I love you all so much. And sometimes that's so strange to hear from somebody you don't know very well. But it's just the truth. I used to not say it, and then I couldn't stop saying it. But I love you all so much. I mean, what an amazing, amazing. And I may not be able to do the gratitude satsang tomorrow because I just get to like, oh, it's just so much. So I just wanted to say it now. Just how much it's meant to me to have the other teachers here, to have all of you here, all the bell ringing, the singing, the altar, the queens of the altar, the sharing of music, the sharing of love, the sharing of listening and deep presence, and then also giving word. Just if I'm forgetting something, know that in my heart I'm in deep gratitude for everything you've done, the labyrinth. People brought food to share. I mean, just everything, just truly like a family. And it just means more than words can say. It's ineffable beauty, and it feels like home. The heart expressed as this basket that we've woven, really, this tapestry.